hello, hello. It's great to be at the Databricks and AI Summit. Today we'll be sharing how at RecRoom we use RudderStack and Databricks to process our data to make the game better for our users. First things first, quick intros. My name is Albert. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I work remotely, so it's great to be in person. I joined RecRoom around 6 months ago on the data team as a senior analytics engineer. We own all the data functions at RecRoom, the ingestion, the transformation, the data science aspect. But we'll talk more about that. But I'll pass it to Louis to give a quick intro.
Awesome. Thank you, Albert. My name is Louis Mbae. I lead the custom engineering team at RudderStack. I've been at the company for a little bit more than a year now, and over the course of that time, I've gotten to see how great brands like RecRoom leverage us in very impactful ways to collect, unify, activate data. Businesses like them use the Databricks lakehouse as their central source of truth. And so today, really excited to have you all here. Come listen to us talk about how RecRoom processes 1 billion events a day using both RudderStack and Databricks.
Cool. So if you haven't heard about RecRoom, it's a free gaming/social app where there's many different worlds that are like rooms, and they're all digital. It ranges from like player versus player games, so you have like laser tag, paintball, to like co-ops, where people are going on quests with each other to fight monsters. And then they also have just like a hangout place as well, so people socialize in real life replications of the real world, but also really like fantasy worlds as well. We've even had weddings on the platform, so it's really cool how people use the platform. RecRoom was founded in 2016. It's based in Seattle. Started on VR, but over the years it's expanded to iPhones, Androids, tablets, Xbox, PlayStation, PC, you name it. And not only has it become more cross-platform, but the actual rooms that are being explored are not created by RecRoom anymore, but mostly rooms are created by our users themselves. So we have a large creator community, and one of the key gaming mechanics is creation. So we want to make it easier for creators to dream up a room, publish it to all these platforms, and make a living off the platform. Here's just a screenshot of like a couple days worth of data from one of our sources, RudderStack. What's exciting about RecRoom is that we can track everything because it's a digital world, and that becomes a little overwhelming sometimes. So the important thing that we want to do is how do we maximize the ROI on the data that we're getting? One is how do you make big impact and add value to that data that is outsized impact relative to the processing time and storage it takes to process this much data. So these are examples of like what we're doing today and how we think we're making impact with data. And one of the core values at RecRoom is ready, fire, aim, repeat. So really what that is ship, learn, iterate, and kind of do that cycle over and over again. How we support ready, fire, aim, repeat at RecRoom is A/B testing as much as possible. We need clean data to be able to do that. The other thing is RecRoom has grown a lot over the last couple of years. There's millions of users all over the world on different platforms. How do we connect users to the rooms that they'll find fun and engaging? So we're also building recommendation models using data. So it's cool to have data kind of go back into game. And then lastly, the creator community is extremely important to us. We want to make it easier and easier for creators to make advanced, complex rooms. We also want to share data with them. So how we use data internally at RecRoom to make the game better. How do we also share it with creators so they know what's going well and where are the opportunities to grow their player base? These data challenges is like tale as old as time. We have a lot of different data sources, different data destinations, and we want to collect all this data, unify, and activate it. One of the challenges with doing this is like it's not just the integration, doing it once, but also the maintenance of these pipelines is extremely challenging over time because everything is also changing over time with all the sources and destinations. The other thing is that we also want to tailor the events specific to the destination itself. So if you imagine like one event that has a lot of event properties, we want to send it to all those event properties to Databricks. However, for something like Amplitude for product analytics, we might want to kind of trim the user properties so it's only a few of them because there is actually a limit to how many properties you can send. And then in StatSig, which is our experimentation platform, if we want to expose that event on, let's say, the user level or the device level, we have to change the payload. So these are old problems, but what's different now is, I would say, like the time to impact is being compressed. So how do we use all these tools that we have to show value really quickly? And the second is the bar on data quality is a lot higher right now because we're sending now data not just for internal dashboards and reporting, but we're sending the data in-game. We're sending it outside of our walls to the creator community. So how do we build trust and quality with data? This is just an example from time to action. So it took maybe a couple months to stand up all the infrastructure. But then also, last year we started A/B testing. Well, we launched over 150 experiments, a little over a year. And that's just a testament of not only the speed to action with using RudderStack and Databricks, but also the cultural adoption at RecRoom, really embodying ready, fire, and repeat. But 150 experiments is just a number, so just want to zoom in on one. So this example is we wanted to ship a new profile page. So the left profile is our old version, and then as you go to the right, those are newer and newer versions of our player profile. Player profile is important because that's where we interact with users, you can message them, and without A/B testing, what we would have done is just ship the new player profile, figure it out later if it impacted the metrics. Now with A/B testing, we're using stats today, we can kind of put under a feature gate, and what was surprising about the player profile refinement is that when we shipped it out to a few users, we noticed an immediate drop in chat messaging between players. That's really concerning for us because we're a social app, so people are not chatting with each other, they're not kind of socializing or interacting, and that will hurt our kind of primary metrics of like time spent, retention over time. So being able to incrementally ship out new product features, but also see how we can learn from it from a metric standpoint, it's really difficult without the infrastructure to be able to do that. And then ultimately, when we shipped out the final product, it increased chat messaging by 25%. So originally, we just want to ship out a new profile page, not impact the metrics, but with being able to test, we can actually ship a better product than we thought previously. So how do we get there? Lewis will do a deep dive into that.
Awesome, thank you, Albert. So by now I'm sure you're wondering what is RudderStack and what do we do? Well, we are a lakehouse native customer data platform. And what I mean by that is we empower a lot of your business teams, so your marketing team, product team, customer success team, to collect behavioral, otherwise known as clickstream data, and batch data, send that to the lakehouse, and then pull out a more unified, enriched version of that data for insights and activation. Now, a cool thing is that we don't persist any of that data in our systems. It's all in the lakehouse, and that puts you in a really solid security, compliance footing, while also minimizing your infrastructure costs. Two things that are super, super important in today's sort of regulatory and economic macro environment. We've been around for about 4 years now, and we're trusted by great brands like RecRoom, and then some of you can see at the bottom there, Allbirds, Stripe, Crate and Barrel. So really excited about the future for us. Now, we at RudderStack live and breathe customer data, and so that has led us to this insightful point of view that data goes through this activation life cycle as it drives your business outcomes. And that starts with data collection. So to the yellow little box over there, it's all about starting off with the collecting of data. For us, we have several out-of-the-box SDKs that enable you to collect high-quality, consented, first-party data, and then funnel that into 200-plus destinations that we support also out of the box. And then after that, you can go ahead and start unifying that. Now, still staying on the collect piece, Lakehouse, the Databricks Lakehouse is also one of our biggest destinations that we support, and we have a lot of customers using that. Well, once you collect that data, you get to the unify step where a lot of times you have data coming in from a whole bunch of different sources. So you got your web, server-side, mobile, SaaS tools, maybe some operational databases in there. And a lot of times the challenge here for any business is that for any particular user or customer, you don't have a complete view of what that customer is doing across your different channels and touch points. And that's where unification comes in. With RudderStack, we're able to unify for you that profile of customer, create an identity resolution across different identifiers from anonymous to known, across apps, across platforms, And what that powers for you is that you can create this really interesting business use cases that are tailored to you. Use cases like recommendations and personalization, engagement use cases, analytics, and even ML-related use cases around prescriptive and predictive type things. So all this powered by RudderStack on top of the lakehouse. Now, once you unify that data, the next step is activation. And this can be done pretty easily with what we call our reverse-ETL data pipeline. For RecRoom, what this looks like is whenever they want to engage the most active, or rather reward the most active game creators, it's very easy for them to find that audience and then drive that audience to the right engagement tool and then reach out to those creators. Takes maybe a data engineer and a couple of days of work with this type of solution. Obviously, without that, it's multiple data engineers, several days of data wrangling, just a ton of pain and sort of an error-prone type process. Once you activate that data, a lot of times you might want to collect metrics out of the activity that you've generated. So metrics to help you measure, iterate on your activation campaigns. And that pretty much closes this high ROI data lifecycle that we've created for you. Now let's see, jump into the specifics of how RecRoom leverages RudderStack. So to your left, you've got data sources. Middle right, you've got data destinations. In the middle, you've got the Databricks Unity catalog, which serves as the central source of truth for the RecRoom team. And then there's some modeling that happens there via DBT, something I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. If we double click to the left, you'll see RudderStack providing SDKs for sources like the Unity gaming engine, JavaScript source as well to support websites. In server environments, .NET server environments, we got an SDK for that as well. A webhook to generalize things, and then in mobile environments that are built on Flutter. Then when you jump to the right, you've got cloud tools like Amplitude for product analytics, Facebook for advertising, a webhook, Azure Event Hub to also provide hooks that allows the RecRoom team to generalize the set of destinations that they can send data to, and then StatSig at the bottom for A/B testing. So pretty obvious here is that as you add more sources and destinations, the complexity begins to compound. And that's where RudderStack comes in. Our key value add here is that we provide a very intuitive UI for you to manage these data sources and destinations and give you the ability to quickly get to value, whether you're technical or have just some slight technical knowledge there. I want to talk about a key feature that RudderStack provides called transformations. This is something that can really supercharge your data pipelines. And a lot of this comes up to customers coming in and asking us, hey, especially my team, how can we manipulate events in flight from source to destination? Use case like I want to be able to modify an event so that it conforms to a certain downstream schema, or I want to be able to enrich an event with some third-party source, data source, maybe make an HTTP call out of this event in flight, and then pull some payload from some service that I leverage, and we'll be jumping into a good example of that on the RecRoom side. Use cases like, and then another one could be, I want to be able to scrub PII content to meet some certain compliance requirement. And this code snippet to the right, it's a little blurred out, but the goal here is to show you that as this data flows through RudderStack, we're able to scan every single event, run it through this snippet of code, scanning for a social security number, and when we find that, be able to mask that using an MD5 hash and then forward that to the destination. So this is just one example of sort of a PII use case. I should mention that we support both Python and JavaScript for building these transformations. So languages that are super popular for both data scientists and just your general developer. And you do not need to be technical to leverage transformation. So we provide a very sort of simple pre-canned set of transformations that kind of service common recipes that you can quickly deploy in a click of a button. And we'll continue to grow that library of transformation. So the upshot here is that with transformations, you can deliver for your organization high quality data that's secure and trustworthy. RecRoom, let's see how they leverage transformations. So starting from the left, filtering events by destination. As you mentioned, the RecRoom team is huge fans of transformations, like a lot of our customers. But starting off to the left, filtering events by destination. So you saw in an earlier slide, they've got a whole suite of destinations, including Amplitude and Facebook. These destinations require different fields. So you don't need to send the same thing to Facebook that you do to Amplitude, given those tools serve different purposes. And so with the transformation, the RecRoom team can filter out and say, okay, these set of fields sent to Facebook, while if the destination is Amplitude, go ahead and drop those fields. So a lot of versatility there. Second comes in with cleaning and enriching data. A really cool use case here is the RecRoom team can map an IP address to geolocation information. So make a call to a third-party endpoint using an IP address and get back information like city, lat, long, zip code, all that good stuff. And when that data, that particular event lands in the lakehouse, they can quickly do analysis, ad hoc analysis on their global user base to figure out behaviors and things like that. And then thirdly is being able to test transformations and then deploy them out into production, something that enables them to live up to being a true CI/CD shop. Now, if you sign up to RudderStack and you want to play around with transformations, I've got some quick tips for you. Treat them like any other piece of code. So if you have a transformation that you want to use repeatedly, go ahead and define that once and then instantiate it. Define it in what we call libraries. We have those pretty well documented, and then use that across your different source destinations, workspaces, and things like that. That way you want to keep the key thing is that it helps you keep your code dry so that you don't have a lot of duplicated code everywhere that's kind of prone to a lot of issues and can impart how effective you could be with your deployment of your code. Secondly is version control and PR process. And the idea here is living up to the latest and greatest software development practices just to make sure that you're deploying these transformations in a collaborative way. People can review your transformations. Other people on your team can review your transformations and then push them out to production. And last but not least is automated testing, just a best practice so that as you push these transformations out, you have confidence that they can deliver on what you want to deliver on, and things won't break. So we have GitHub Actions for that can help you to that end. Now, spent a lot of time talking about RudderStack. It's time to switch back to see how RecRoom leverages Databricks. But before I do that, and obviously Albert will be diving into that, but before I do that, I'll tee some things up. So remember I said we collect all this data from a bunch of different sources, get it into RudderStack, get it into the Databricks lakehouse, pardon me. We typically lay it out there, lay out in the lakehouse in in a predefined schema. And what that means is that for Albert and his team, he can easily map a lot of his business use cases into queries that run on top of that data. So that gives him speed to insight, speed to action, and things of that nature. Just to kind of zoom in a little bit into what the data model looks like. So at the center of it all is what we call a users table. On there is that we have every unique user captured in that table together with a bunch of attributes around that unique user, things like their email, first name, last name. And there's a lot of flexibility here for what you want to capture. There's also contextual information around that user, and then a timestamp in case you want to do a sort of a time series type journey mapping. And then on the right of that table is a tracks table that pretty much captures every action a user is taking in both an anonymous and a known state. And you can imagine by joining these two tables, you can have a pretty good idea of what your customers or users are doing on your site in both anonymous and known state. And in that way, you can more appropriately engage them and create those great customer experience that we all want to deliver for customers. With that, I'll give it over to Albert to tell us a little bit more about how he leverages Databricks.
All right, cool. Thanks, Louis. So the next couple of slides are just tips. And I'm going to use the word trade-off a lot because we have to make a lot of trade-offs. And it's really important to know what trade-offs you're making and why. And so this is definitely not prescriptive, but this is what works for us now. So a really good way to look at this is first through the medallion architecture, right? So being really opinionated on what each layer should be doing for you to inform what logic you should be using. Bronze layer, just get the data in there, keep it raw to be processed later. Silver, what's interesting about RudderStack data and even any sort of event data is that it will always be late. And it's just a matter of how late the data is. So if you imagine at RecRoom, someone's clicking on a button in the store, there's some network instability. We can collect that event maybe like minutes, hours, even days later. So we really need to take that into account. So the first trade-off is like, OK, when we process the bronze layer data, we're using a merge instead of an append. Merging is more expensive, of course. And then you think about the parameters for merging. We're using a 2-day look-back window. The longer you look back, the more late data you can get. But there's a tolerance set from an overhead cost, like what really makes sense. So the questions that we ask ourselves are, like, what should we be considering like event time for, let's say, RudderStack data? Is it the time something happened, or is it the time we actually received the data? The second is, what should we be partitioning the data by? And that is really key, because if we're going to be filtering and merging on this partition, we need to choose the right field to do that. And then how do we make the pipelines idempotent? So meaning, if we reprocess the same input data, how do we get the same output data every time? Because we're ultimately going to have to like backfill, update these tables. Hopefully not too often, but when it does happen, we need to make sure it's idempotent. So on the silver layer, what makes sense is partitioning by the server date, the date we actually collect the event. The reason for that is, the server date won't change over time. And so if you have created at dates that are all like in the past, in the future, we have data from like 2030, we have data from 1970s, depends on the device synchronization. So how do we take that into account is using partition by the server date, so that when we actually collect the data. When we get to the gold layer, now you have to ask yourself, like, what does the business actually care about? The data scientists don't want to be querying by when the actual data was received by us, but actually when it actually happened. So then we have to switch the partition on the gold layer to actually the event date, created date, because that's what our data scientists are querying and filtering by. All right, next thing is, this is learning from our side too, is if you're looking at table properties and setting up your pipelines, make sure you set up your table properties very early in the process. The reason for that is table properties is a one-way door. So let's say you have these huge event tables, and you want to like backfill it in the future, rename tables, change data types. Make sure you have an opinion on what you're actually going to do with these table properties and what operations map to what table properties that you need. Again, it's a one-way door. So once you do this operation, you have to make sure you don't need the version history anymore. I learned this the hard way. When I was backfilling data, I changed the table properties. I couldn't go back in time. So make sure you do this early, and so you reduce that downside risk. The second thing is, if you have older Databricks runtime versions, the reader writers, once you change this, it could break it. So you want to make sure you do this really early in the pipeline process, so you're not having to deal with it in the future. The other thing is related to table properties is structuring your table. So you think about, let's say you're trying to enable data skipping, right? So you want to run a Z order to co-locate related information together. By default, you get the first 32 columns. And then here's another trade-off. So if you want to do more than that, you have to update the table properties. And you probably don't want to do this globally. This is going to be very specific to a table. For Z ordering, you want to Z order keys, high cardinality fields that are used in query predicates. And so you want to stick those on the left side of your table. And then strings, stick them on the right. You don't really get the benefit of Z ordering, which has some overhead costs. And you want to make sure that the benefit of Z ordering and the query benefits that you get later, it's a net positive. All right. This is also learning in the early days, really basic, but just want to call it out, is know what compute you want to use. So know the frequency, know the processing time, and include that startup time as well. For scheduled jobs, like job versus all-purpose cluster, in the early days of RecRoom, we just kind of use all-purpose clusters for everything, but really, there's a 3x cost difference there. So know how frequent your jobs are running, because job clusters, let's say you have a job that takes 5 minutes, and the job cluster takes 4 minutes to start up. processing time is 1 minute, while the all-purpose cluster, there's no startup time. It takes 1 minute. Kind of choose which one's best for you. For SQL-only jobs, what's really nice is like getting access to instant compute with serverless. That saves us about like 30% of startup costs per year for SQL jobs. Now thinking about like workload size. Again, this is early days of RecRoom. We kind of always thought about like, oh, just use the small one. We're very scared to go medium, large Excel. It looked very expensive to us. But really, we want to optimize cost over time. So think about, let's say, the smallest compute versus medium. Let's say a medium warehouse, there could be a 2x cost difference there. However, if the medium runs 2x faster than the small, we'd probably go with the medium. So really just think about optimizing cost over time. And then the other thing to think about is other clues about your warehouse sizing is byte spill to disk. Real example, if you circled there, there's like, I think almost like 5 terabytes of spillage there. And when that happens, you'll see performance degradation. You'll also see out-of-memory errors, everything that looks bad. And so what's happening here is when bytes are spilled to disk, like the RDD is getting written from RAM to local disk, back to RAM. Usually the size of the partition is too large. And you can typically kind of replicate this using like explodes and cross joins. That will lead to the error. Fastest ways to solve this is just kind of go higher up in the cluster size. It's more expensive. So definitely like look at the query first. But really, sometimes you just should upsize your compute. Typically, event data will be your largest data set. So going back to like the silver and gold, choosing a partition is not only like a business practical decision, but there's also just like performance things that you should be considering. Table size greater than a terabyte. Size of each partition is greater than a gigabyte. This is straight from the docs. The larger the partition, usually the better. And then on the right is more query the delta logs. That will give you the actual size of the partitions, how many files there are. I didn't put all the code there, but if you're like interested in knowing how to do this, feel free to email me after. I'll just share the notebook. Let's see. And then, all right, pruning partitions to optimize merge. So merging is a very expensive operation versus appending. And typically, to optimize this, we want to rewrite the least number of files. On the right is really how we're measuring the processing time for RudderStack data. You can see like a really steep drop in processing time around April, like a 3x time savings there. What we did here was just actually add one line to actually explicitly prune on the server date. We thought it would actually just do it by itself, but you really need to be explicit about it, and that allows you to rewrite the least number of files. All right, so if you have Photon enabled, you want to maximize Photon as much as possible. Photon is the Databricks native C++ query engines, super fast when you use it. However, it's not all functions are Photon compatible, so you'll have a lot of queries that are partially Photon. You'll see it in the Spark UI, it's like yellow. Then it goes to blue if it's non-Photon. At the end of the day, you're paying for Photon. So even if it's partial or 100%, you're paying for that time. So you really have to make sure you're using Photon-compatible functions. Really simple example on the right is, let's say we're using RudderStack data. We want to map the user ID to the latest anonymous ID. The top one, we're just using like a row number function, really simple. The other one below, maxby, it's a little bit more, I guess, elegant. However, maxby is not a Photon-compatible function. So if you kind of take these two queries and run in a large data set, the first one runs 100% on Photon. It's about 2 times faster on like a terabyte table, while the one below, it's a lot slower. And then you check the docs. Photon-compatible functions are always being added, so this might be outdated in the future. Finally, it's really hard to improve what you can't measure. We kind of hold other teams, like product marketing teams, to KPIs as a data team. So we need our own. So I would really get comfortable with like all the metadata that's available. The delta log, if you're using GPT, you have the artifacts. And really kind of spend the time measuring performance and like spend the time actually translating that time into dollars. It's really hard to rationalize like infrastructure work over product work if you can only say like, oh, I saved like 6 hours of time on this pipeline every day versus save like 100,000 a year. One is kind of translates better than the other. It's becoming easier and easier to do that as well. And the other thing is just more for myself is like, once you create all these tools and dashboards, make sure you use it. I think there's a lot of work that goes to doing that. But you want to make sure you have creating like tools and dashboards are just the start of the work. You want to create team rituals, review things, understand trends behind it. And then kind of going back to like why this is all important. One is clean, high quality data. I think as RecRoom is sharing data, using it in-game, it's sharing data into our creator community, the bar on data quality is just a lot higher and higher. The second is we want to spend more time on product work versus infrastructure work. RudderStack enables us to do that. But we also want to be able to like go into the transformations and kind of make quick changes really nimbly. So we kind of want the best of both worlds. So RudderStack kind of gives us ability to not worry about the heavy lifting of the infrastructure maintenance, but also just thinking about like what actually data do we need in each destination and what should it look like. And lastly, it's important to unlock the business outcomes. A/B testing was huge for us. Recommendation models, machine learning are also big use cases for data. So what's next for us? I'm really excited for the future and kind of continue to partner with RudderStack and Databricks to enable like more personalized recommendations. It's going to require more granular data that's more frequent. We want to share more metrics with our creator community in a way that's responsible. I think there's always these dependencies that create that are always a little challenging to kind of maintain over time. And last thing, I'm like really excited to be at the Databricks conference because I think a lot of these things are becoming automated. So we're really excited to like not spend too much time thinking about like partitions and like optimizing all these things, but think about like a global solution to like 80% of our problems, while 20% of them are just like we can like fine tune and really spend our time doing that. But really excited how things are progressing here. And then I'll pass it back to Louis to kind of take us home.
Thank you, Albert. So at RudderStack, we just want to continue building for our customers, great brands like RecRoom, and also working with our partners to deliver amazing experiences for their customers and also drive value for their businesses. So top of mind for us are building a unified 360 on top of the lakehouse. So that the idea there is to empower you to resolve identities across anonymous to known, across apps, across platforms, and then create feature-rich views of your customer so you can engage them in the way you see fit. So that's huge for us. Second is we want to continue to bolster our data governance offering, and that's all about making sure that you are collecting high-quality data that's AI-ready, that you can feed into your models for ML-type use cases, so the predictive, prescriptive, and all that cool stuff that folks care about. Thirdly is there's an explosion of data tools that exist out there to drive different business needs. We want to continue to support that. Today we're at 200 plus, and that number will continue to grow. But we also want to allow our customers to generalize into other different destinations, so provide the hooks for them to extend to different data tools that they want to send data to. And so that's top of mind for us. And lastly is unlocking of real-time use cases. So things like being able to do in-app recommendations, in-app personalization. We want to be able to be the CDP that drives, customer data platform that drives that. And all of it is how quickly can we sync data into the lakehouse, and how quickly can that data be served up to the different applications that need it in real time. And that's pretty much it from us today. Thank you so much for joining us and hearing us out. And yeah, we'll take any questions here or after the talk.